Good morning, everybody. So I'm not necessarily at work today. But I was on Facebook the other day, and I noticed a lot of believers, African American believers, that are up in arms about what happened recently to the young runner. And I agree that what happened to him was terrible, it was unjust, it wasn't right, straight up racist. I agree, 100%. From that same point, though, I see a lot of believers on Facebook talking about this being an issue with all white people are just treating us bad, blah, blah, blah. First of all, my question to believers is, what do you identify yourself with? A people group, as you're African American, or the fact that you are one of God's children? Because if you are one of God's children, then those white people that you demonize, some of them are also God's children. So you're demonizing some of your brothers and sisters. That's what you're doing. Alright? Now, Jesus was given a message or whatever, and they said, your mother and brothers are outside waiting on you. They want to talk to you. And what did Jesus say? You guys are my mothers and my brothers. Those of you who do the will of my Father, you guys are my family. Who is your real family? And we, forget who our true family is. Now, I'm not saying you need to neglect your regular family. That's not what I'm saying at all. You need to love and honor your parents. That's a commandment. What I am saying is that we forget that some of our family is not just black believers, white believers, Asian believers, Middle Eastern believers. These are our family. And you cannot base the actions of 2 people or even 100 people of one color and say that entire group of people of that color are all crazy. Not. In the book of Galatians, I think it's chapter 6, verse 12, it tells us to do good to all people. It doesn't say just do good to your family. It doesn't say only do good to your friends. It doesn't say only do good to people who treat you right. Excuse me. It said do good to all people. But it says especially to believers. Okay? Now, I have an issue when people constantly support black business. I do. But I first and foremost, I support businesses of other believers first. Because that same verse that says do good to all people says do good especially to those in the brotherhood of the faith, believers. So I do good to believers first. I support businesses of my fellow believers, my brothers and sisters who are going to be with me in eternity. I support their businesses. If they happen to be black, to me that's a plus. But that's the way I see it. Those guys that did that thing, they were white. Like, yeah, they were. But what's the word say about who our enemy really is? Okay? Book of Galatians in chapter 5 talks about, it's something one of my friends brought up to me yesterday. I thank God for her. She's a wonderful person. She's like a spiritual mom to me. She brought up Galatians 5 about the fruits of the Spirit and the fruits of the flesh. People operating in the fruit of the flesh, which is, murder and envy and strife and wrath and all those things, they're not God's people. I see all the time people on Facebook saying, these Christians are so evil. The KKK are Christians and Black Panthers are Christians, and these Christians do all wrong things. No, the Bible clearly says these people are not of His Spirit. They're not doing the will of the Father. So they are fake believers. The Bible talks about the wheat and the tare, or the weed and the wheat. It says they look the same, they grow together, but at the end some will be thrown into the fire. Well, those people who are the false believers who are doing things in God's name, but they don't really know who God is, they're not operating in His Spirit, those are the ones He's talking about going to be thrown in the fire. That's the tare. You need to understand that and quit saying that the two are together, because there are a lot of false believers even pastors, deacons, members of your church, friends and family. They can be, they can believe in God and not really be of God. Okay, you need to understand there's a difference there. So, Ed, what do we do about these situations when people are being racist towards black people, or even racist towards white people? My wife has experienced some racism, just for being married to me from black people. All right, so what do we do? Well, first of all, we need to understand who our enemy really is. Our enemy is not the people group. Our enemy is not white people, black people. Our enemy is the devil. The Bible clearly says that we don't war against flesh and blood, but we war against principalities and rulers and darkness and things of that nature. So our enemy is the devil. Okay? Now, some of these people may be, influenced by him, whether you see that as possession or oppression or whatever, but they're operating in his spirit. They're of their father, the devil, is what Jesus said. You're of your father, Satan, the father of lies. You need to understand that that's our first and foremost enemy. So you need to be rebuking him, and in your prayer closet, going to war for your fellow man, for your fellow believers. Rebuking spirits of racism, spirits of anger, and then learning to teach people about the Lord. Because we do all this complaining about how people aren't living for the Lord. Well, do they know how to live for the Lord? Jesus clearly said for us to make disciples. How come we're not doing it? We all have some sort of ministry we need to be a part of, whether that's talking to one person or discipling two people or whatever. If God has something for you to do, he has a plan for you. That's in the book of Jeremiah. So we need to accept that plan. He wants us to help and raise up other believers. Why don't we do that? And last thing I want to touch up on is people say, well, what do I do in certain situations? The Spirit will lead you. You need to operate in the fruit of the Spirit. I've been pulled over for being black. At least I think it was for being black. The man told me, it was a white sheriff officer. He pulled me over. He said, you look suspicious. Okay? I look suspicious. I wanted to cuss him out. I didn't. I stopped what I was doing, pulled over, gave him my license and registration. He let me go. He didn't have anything on me. Now, I could have, turned up on him, and I would have had a bigger situation on my hands, but I didn't do that. Before Jesus got out of here, in Luke chapter 22, verse 36, it said, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Jesus didn't come to bring peace, okay? Peace makes us comfortable. Peace makes us not really want God, but when you're in trouble, when you have strife, you have tragedy and things like that, that's when you want God, okay? But he said to go and buy a sword. The way I see that is, talk about turning the other cheek, things like that. Be a person of peace. Avoid a situation at all costs. Run if you can. But if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, you got to do what you got to do, okay? One day a man came at my wife kind of hard. He spit in her face. I thought it was about to get violent. I hit him in the throat, okay? I'm not condoning violence, but there's a time and a place for everything. The Bible tells us that. You defend yourself first in the spirit and handle things in the spirit, in the supernatural, in the spiritual realm, rebuking the enemy first and foremost. Your last resort, just to defend yourself, not to go hunting people down, but to defend yourself. Jesus said to get a sword. Modern day, that would be like a gun, a knife, something like that. But defend yourself. Don't be afraid to defend yourself if you need to. I know it might cause a little bit of controversy. I'm sorry. But it's just the way I feel about things. It's the way, when I read my Bible, that's what I see when I read it. Okay? Anyway, you guys have a good day. Don't demonize your family. They love you. The ones in the faith, they love you. These are supposed to.